Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We are going to be talking about the economic situation as far as we've seen the rollover payment from Saudi Arabia, the impact of that, and overall as far as the economic situation at this time is concerned. We've seen, of course, the rupee doing better since a few days. What can we expect from the government in the next couple of weeks? We'll be talking a little bit about that. A little later on, we'll also be talking about the political situation and the address to the KP Assembly. The former Prime Minister spoke whether there will be the exchange of having talks with the government. How serious is it? And of course the government's response on there being no early elections. Of course, as far as the general election is concerned, the government remains adamant it will take place not before August of 2023. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Ashfaq Yusuf Tola, who is President, ICAP, Fellow Chartered Accountant, Member Tax Reforms Commission. Thank you so much for being with us today. Ji. Ashfaq Sahab, like we were earlier speaking about, of course the government has been, since its inception, since it came in, also since Dar Sahab's return, we've seen in firefighting mode. And that situation now, after this rollover payment, as far as our inflow is concerned, all of those things, what is the situation now? As far as economics is concerned, we've also seen the dollar go up, down. It doesn't seem to be as stable as one would like. So what is your overall situation?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, MAHRUKH, for having me in your show. Actually, the issue is that there was some carry forward burdens of the last regime. And when it comes to trust deficit with the IMF is concerned, we have signed an agreement with the IMF, and lately we have agreed upon their terms in November 2021.
Right.
When it comes to obliging that and obeying that, we have done a lot, but in January 2022, we have given a mini budget.
Okay.
And accordingly, we have shown our interest that we will be obliging it.
Right.
But soon thereafter, on 28th of Feb, we have taken a back step, and we have taken a U-turn in general term, I am saying, in a lighter mode. And we have reversed all those reforms which were required to undertake to fulfill the obligations which we have signed. That was the main reason which was called the trust deficit. Lately in March 2021, we have agreed on it, but then in July we said we cannot implement them. So once again, we approached them, we signed it in November 2021, and then we again take a U-turn in February 2022. So that was the last straw in the camel's back.
Okay.
Because of that, there was a trust deficit and there is a trust deficit.
Okay.
We have agreed upon one thing when the budget was announced in June 2021. And when they worked out the current account deficit, it was, they worked it out, State Bank of Pakistan worked it out at $8 billion. And at that time, on August 11, I told in the media that it will exceed 16 billion.
Okay.
And it is on record, which was not subscribed by the then spokesmen of the previous regime. Nonetheless, the time has proved that the current account deficit of the last regime, or maybe the last fiscal year, was 17.4 billion US dollars.
Okay.
So that very gap between $8 billion and $17.4 billion, which is almost $9.4 billion, is really causing a problem for us now.
Okay.
Now we are running from pillar to post, just trying to convince IMF when it comes to when they took over in April, the situation was going from bad to worse. And then obviously we have to fulfill those conditions, and from worse to worse now. So I mean, I think this is the main thing.
And you're saying that original
it is
trust
firefighting.
deficit.
Firefighting. We are doing a firefighting. We are not in a position, let me be very candid, that we are not in a position to make any long-term policy at this juncture.
Okay.
I think next 5 or 6 months, it will be like a roller coaster. And then we will be in a position to just frame some policies for the future.
Do you think that this was, it was expected? I mean, the kind of situation that the government landed in, you think it was a surprise how precarious it was?
It was all expected as far as I know, because of the fact that there was certain man-made crisis as well when it comes to Pakistan and when we look at the global situation. Because of Ukraine war, I mean, which can be avoided. The energy prices, especially in Europe, has gone down 3 times. And obviously they are also facing recession. So when there is an economic downturn, obviously the countries like Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, we all suffer. But it really depends upon what sort of and what kind of export or inflow mix you have. So, I mean, through export, our neighboring country is making more inflows from their service sector. Whereas another country which we are competing with, formerly East Pakistan and now Bangladesh, they are relying on goods. So then they have also to approach IMF. And after a long time, they have taken 2 facilities from IMF. One of 4.1 billion, I think that is for EFF, 4.1 or 4.2 billion dollars, and the other one is 1.3 or 1.4 for climatic changes.
Ishfaq Sahib, I want to come back and talk about a little bit more about this, also particularly about the fact that, you know, as far as decisions that there's a lot of criticism on the last government that they took decisions in the interest of politics rather than in the economic interests when they were taken, you know, in terms of prices that needed to be increased, all of those things. I want to come back and talk more about that. We also have with us Dr. Waqar Ahmed, who's Joint Executive Director, STPI, and also a senior economist. Thank you for being with us. Ji, Dr. Waqar, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Waqar Sahib, we've been talking, I don't know if you've been listening, Ishfaq Sahib has been telling us about what the situation is as far as the economy is concerned, and the fact that the government is at this time in firefighting mode and, you know, not in a position, unfortunately, to make any kind of long-term sustainable policy as far as economy at this time is concerned. Overall, in your experience, the way that the trend is going, how long do you think it will take for the government to be able to get to that kind of level where they feel they're stable enough, where they feel that, you know, perhaps the foreign reserves are also at a level where they're comfortable?
Yes, thank you. I think I would totally agree with what Ishfaq Sahib has just said. And I personally believe that the kind of delay that we are in with regards to the IMF and the fact that their mission has been has not visited and the fact that things haven't come to a closure, I believe that the stability that we are talking about could actually take more than 5 to 6 months. In fact, Ishfaq Sahib has rightly said that the stability is not in sight and it could be around the corner in about 5 to 6 months. But I believe that the kind of delay in the decision making that we are seeing at the top level, things could take much more time. Now, the version that we are listening from the government is that they have completed their homework for the 9th review, a perspective which is not shared by the IMF. We have not seen this kind of an optimism in the statements which have come from the fund. So there is a bit of concern, and certainly our other creditors are also a bit concerned about the situation. I think we should not make the same mistake which, for example, was made in Shaukat Saab's time, or even before that in 2018, of delaying this and thinking or assuming that IMF will oblige due to the flood situation or due to some other sympathetic view by other creditors. I think it's about time that we should sort of understand that bringing an early closure to the 9th review is in the interest of markets, and it will send those positive signals which in turn are necessary to stabilize the value of rupee, to actually bring some stability in inflows, which in turn should let our foreign investors understand that yes, the forex level is at a certain point where they can engage with us. Currently, most FDI arrangements even have stalled just because of the speculations of default, which may not be true, but certainly those speculations hinder their decision making.
Dr. Vakar, I want to talk more about this. Let me come back to you. Ji, Shafaq Saab, what about, I mean, I want to exactly the speculations surrounding default. You know, how does the government expect to deal with that? Of course, you know, we've had Dar Saab come and say categorically that there's no threat of default. But again, you know, it keeps cropping up. You think, of course, it's going to send its own signals into the market, into, you know, overall, as far as our economic climate is concerned. How does the government purport to deal with it?
Well, the first confidence building measure they have given was yesterday's repayment of 1 billion Sukuk bond. So it was flashed in Bloomberg as a breaking news that Pakistan has repaid. So I think that is first step in building the confidence amongst the creditors. Secondly, it's not a huge payment, and there are certain rollovers which is expected. Now you know that it has been established that most of the things Pakistan have suffered is just because of the climatic changes. And the world is also recognizing and realizing this. So I think, in my humble view, and as the Bloomberg has quoted, that the chances of Pakistan's default is not more than 10%, which is negligible and which roams around everywhere in every country. So it is not that significant. We have to control one thing, that is internal rhetorics. I wrote an article in this week, published on Saturday, and I have given a detailed analysis of what is the issue and how we can mitigate it. So this rhetoric of default,
you're saying it stems from our own internal political rhetoric rather than
exactly. And I can tell you one thing. I mean, people are saying that we have a massive withdrawal in Russian digital account as well. So when the world has increased their interest rate, they are more comfortable in their own countries. So if somebody is investing in America and if he is invested somewhere in Pakistan, and if they are getting a better rate in US, in their own market, they are bound to withdraw. So this is not unique. This is not unique. Investment has no nationality. It's like a nomad. They can fly anywhere. Basically, it is the premium which they are getting, it is the reward which they are getting. So we should not mind. And this was anyway, by the way, it was a very high rate investment. And let's pray that it continue to flow in, but it is not very much welcoming. But in this need of hour, we need it. No two opinion. But we have to target something. I mean, we have to just innovate few ideas, like we have to introduce digitization, and we have to curb our parallel economy, because this parallel economy is damaging us a lot.
And more than that, of course, like you earlier said, you know, confidence building measures within are more important, because you know that will of course contribute to the kind of stability we want in the market.
In 2012, I raised a slogan of that political stability is tagged with economic stability. So people used to laugh at me. Now everybody is saying that economic stability is relying upon political stability.
This is a little bit political before I go to Vakar Saab, but like you just mentioned, of course, both are interlinked if we talk about economics and politics. There was earlier a talk about an economic charter, which would supersede any political considerations in the national interest. It doesn't seem like we have an opposition that wants to play ball, but do you think that it's the need of the hour? It
is both ways. When you are in opposition, you do the same thing. When the government, people, those who are in the government, and then they translate themselves into opposition, they are also pursuing the same policy. So we need to sit. We need to just rely on some experts to manage the economy. I mean, obviously, I know it is more political economy. And this is a misnomer that only economists can run the finance. No, I'm sorry. The most successful finance minister of India was Arun Jaitley. Arun Jaitley was merely an advocate of the Supreme Court.
Right.
So
it doesn't matter.
This is not necessary. I think, Manmohan Singh laid the foundation, but there was a huge recession in India in his era. But then thereafter, in BJP's government, the first finance minister was Mr. Arun Jaitley. And he was merely a lawyer. So he ran those economic policy very successfully and gave the boost to the economy. Now again, in this period of recession, most of the economists have failed. But in our kind of economy, we need a politician and a business mind person to head the economic team. Like I think
we have
President said we have Darza.
Let me come back to you. Waqar Sahab, do you think, would you agree, we're talking about an economic charter. Of course, this discussion at this time is largely academic because we don't seem to have the kind of opposition that would want to come down and talk about, having a higher economic charter in place. But like, we've just, SHAHRUKH Sahab is also saying it doesn't matter which government there is in terms of expertise. Also earlier on, as far when the PTI government came in, there was a lot of talk about having experts in the field, and that doesn't seem to have worked well. So in terms of how would you advocate for such a charter?
Yes, absolutely, and I agree with SHAHRUKH Sahab. There is a need for longer-term consensus. That's how China has done it. He rightly pointed out about India. That is how they did it. Since 1992, there's been certainty, at least in the direction that the economy had to take. And I guess this is the lesson from Asia Pacific as well. And I have no doubt in my mind that the reason you are going back to IMF for the 22nd program that we are in at this point, it is because those at the helm of the economic affairs have continued to fail us. But I must also put some blame on the political brass, because while, of course, in the short-term economic measures, there has been a consensus across the party lines, PTI, PMLN, People's Party, all signed up to the same kind of IMF conditionalities. So the short-term policies are almost the same, and they're given in the staff report. It is the longer-term structural reforms on which all are playing politics. So why is it that the politicians are failing us when it comes to privatization, losses of public sector enterprises, circular debt in the energy sector, pensions reform, so many other things on which we start playing politics, knowing fully that any political party that comes to power will end up booking more debt. They'll have to borrow more just due to these unfunded expenditures.
So when we can have an opposition that sits outside right now criticizing the economic policy of the current government, talking about the threat of default, all of those things, but it will invariably, whoever is in power will invariably have to deal with more of the same challenges. You are saying that essentially.
Absolutely. This is the core dimension, which is sort of at the core of our failure, that you play politics when you are in the opposition, and once you are in power, you are asked by the IMF to implement the same reforms in energy sector, in SOEs, and you're unable to do it because now the opposition would do the same thing. May I also add here that it is also the responsibility of the courts. For example, when you have to take decisions on privatization, they're very easy to be struck down just because of a stay order. Or, for example, the reform of SOEs, state-owned enterprises. And the courts also have to take this responsibility. The judiciary also has to rise to the occasion to enhance their economic understanding and support the economy.
Right. SHAHRUKH Sahab, in terms of out-of-box solutions, what is the government looking at? I mean, of course, what Waqar Sahab is saying, he's talking about judicial reform also. We're talking, these are all interlinked. One can't really say that one is in isolation of the other. But right now, of course, like you said, firefighting mode, all of those things. What are out-of-the-box solutions for the government?
It is out-of-box is not enough now. It has to be now beyond out-of-box, because we have a limited space now. And the world is in the crisis. So what we have to do, we have to just figure out medium, short, and long-term goals now. And now obviously it depends upon the stability of your country, your internal security, your external security. Right now we are facing so many challenges. So at this juncture, I think short-term policies which requires, I mean, like stability of your currency and then collection of taxes, obviously increasing of export. We don't have exportable surplus. I mean, we are merely shooting in the dark.
Okay.
Unless we find some import substitution or we find some service sector exports like IT exports, and it's true spirit. Out of these traditional exports, we are at the same quantity level.
Okay.
It depends upon the prices. Say if the cotton is maybe in US market is more than $1 a pound, your exports reach to $26 billion. When it comes down to 85 cents, it will go back to $24 billion. So you are totally relying on, because, and moreover, 70% of what you are exporting in these major sectors, especially in textile, is your import. So it is a double-edged sword now.
Okay.
You are exporting raw cotton. So what you have to do, you have to in a long term, you have to introduce reforms in all the sectors. We have to realize one thing. You have to give direct subsidy to the people. I mean, I think those who are living below this poverty line, they need a heavy support from the government. I mean, like, we have taken banking reforms and we have done...
But the government is not in a position to provide that kind of support.
That's what I'm figuring out for them. Like, I mean, we have signed agreement with IMF that we will not borrow from the State Bank of Pakistan, which is costing us dearly. Suppose if the local debt is 38 trillion, and if we are paying, borrowing from the bank, we are paying 2% extra. So the total loss which the government at its own level is incurring is around 3.9 trillion. And out of that, suppose if we collect 50% in the tax, we are losing net 380 billion. If suppose if we invest that money in poverty alleviation or supporting the SME, it will definitely boost our economy, it will definitely increase our GDP. And it is a very unconfirmed but reliable calculation that 1% increase in GDP provides, especially in the upper side like agriculture or maybe in industry or maybe in construction, it will add 300,000 jobs. We need 1.8 million jobs. So our GDP shall grow by 6% at least. So these are the challenges which we need to overcome. Irrespective of who is looking after the economy,
those are the realities.
Those are the challenges. But considering the Pakistan economy, we need to figure out within certain parameters. We cannot go for a higher rate of interest. We have to control our inflation, and we have to control and manage the parity.
What about in terms of the long term? Again, you mentioned long term, short term goals, but we do need measures that are, you know, sustainable for a considerable period of time.
We have to create an equity in all spheres of economic activity.
Okay.
Like we are giving subsidies. I mean, let me give you an example. We are giving a support price of the wheat,
right,
which is equivalent to the international market. It's good. We should give. But on the contrary, we are giving huge subsidies in terms of fertilizer, seeds, and so many others. We are not charging them the tax. Then what is the use? We are just giving a free lunch.
Right.
So if we can import that, the main consideration is to avoid import.
Right.
So what is the cost and what are the benefits? We have to evaluate that. Secondly, like I said that the parallel economy is huge. How to curb it? We have to make action plans for that. Government has recently formed a commission which is called Reform and Resource Mobilization Commission, and I am chairing that.
Right.
Wakar is also part of my team, and inshallah we will figure out so many things, and we have to submit our report, first report, in April. So hopefully we will address these challenges and we will give them what best we can give.
Right. And we're unfortunately going to have to close this and move towards the political side of things. But Dr. Waqar, your quick comments overall in terms of what we can expect in the next, I would say, a couple of weeks, couple of months.
Yes, thank you very much. I think the government is determined to really finalize the 9th review, and after that markets at least should have the certainty for the next quarter or so. You could actually see the interest of our key allies like China pick up. China has already said that in the spring of 2023, some early investments in the CPEC projects are also expected, and the visit of Chinese Premier is also expected. All this hopefully should give a big boost to the market in the coming days.
Right. Thank you so much for being with us. Ashfaq Yusuftola, thank you for joining us. Dr. Waqar Ahmed, thank you for being with us. Things don't seem to be as dire as, of course, it's predicted as far as our economy is concerned. We will come back after a short break to talk more about the economic situation and as far as the talks between the opposition and government and whether they will likely proceed or not. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We're going to be talking about the political situation now. We have with us Dr. Abid Abbasi, who's a political analyst. Thank you for joining us. Abid Saab, overall, of course, we saw a statement come from the former Prime Minister saying that he is willing to talk to the government. Again, there seems to be a certain kind of backtracking to that statement, a certain kind of qualification. But how do you look at it overall in terms of, do you think it's a change to, a dogmatic kind of stance saying that he would not at all talk? Do you think it's going to lead to some kind of, a relationship, a working relationship at all? Because earlier also there was hope that he would return to the assemblies, but that doesn't seem to be happening. He again talks about dissolution and he says that it will move forward when he spoke to the KP Assembly today.
Thank you very much, MAHRUKH. Yes, we all know, and this is something very much clear, that democracy is all about negotiations, talking, inclusiveness, and taking the people on one table, talking about various things to make forward, to make, roads and paths for the betterment of the people. Unfortunately, former Prime Minister and the PTI chief, Imran Khan, he has been using a mantra that he would never shake hand even with the opposition leader when he was Prime Minister, and even prior to that when he was opposition leader, or he was not even talking to them. We have seen some very sensitive kind of issues regarding the state of Pakistan. When the Kashmir issue was, on the surface, and a conference was called upon, and every stakeholder, the head of every stakeholder institutions was in that meeting, and Khan Sahib even did not bother to listen the point of view of the opposition, and because we know the Westminster democratic system, that there is a very crucial constitutional role of opposition, which he totally consistently denied. Even we know when it comes to the appointment of some very crucial institutions like NAB or like Chief Election Commissioner or the caretaker government when the elections are heading. There is a constitutional role of the opposition leader, but Khan Sahib did not even, actually it was his political the rhetoric that he was mustering the support of his followers, that when I shake hand with these corrupt people, quote unquote, which he alleged time and again, it would damage his popularity among those people. Even we have seen in the very first session when Imran Khan came into parliament as the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the opposition leader of that time and the Prime Minister of the current government, Shehbaz Sharif, offered him a dialogue, but he refused blatantly, and he has been raising that kind of slogans that if I shake hand with these corrupt people, these thieves and these dacoits,
but you think he's ready to shake hands now?
I think he has used, for me, he has left with very least options.
What about dissolution?
He has used every resolve which he could. He, used that the resolve of sit-in in Islamabad, which made him succeed previously to come into power, to muster the support of the agitational support, through agitational means the support of the people. But this time he actually lost that kind of resolve, but he couldn't come into Islamabad. He remained, sitting in Pindi, and that was a prescribed place which was given to him, and he stayed there. And we have seen, I personally seen
but
that
what do you expect now is in terms of, I mean, he's not backtracking, he's not moving forward also, but he's not backtracking on the dissolution of assemblies. Do you see him move
I
forward?
think there would be a lot of things. He knows, he is well aware that there are so many people in his party. They are not agree to resign from the assemblies or dissolution of the assemblies.
Do you think he doesn't have his allies' support? What is behind the delay, in your opinion?
Of course, there are some people in the party, they are not willing to put resignation or even either to go for the dissolution of the assembly, because they will some of the people
in the National Assembly.
But National Assemblies, still we have seen some people, went to the High Court that our resignation should not be accepted. And such kind of mess would creating even that this is not a joke when in his term, in his words that 67% country if would resign, there would be no means of the public representation. I think there are so many, there are options for the government. There are so many, water to run under the bridges, because if the assemblies would be resolved, there would be an option to go into the court. Court would see that either it's a malafide or what the objectives.
You see the court interfering in the climate that we are in at this time? You think they will interfere?
But if I'm saying that conditionally, if this issue would happen so, but probably there would be, if the Imran Khan is offered that a dialogue, nobody is actually believing that he is seriously going for because we have seen his quote unquote undemocratic attitude in past. He did not make any negotiation while being in opposition, while being in the government. He did not, when he was in opposition, he did not bother to talk to the government on very crucial issues. Even Pak-China relations with the Chinese president was coming to Pakistan. Even then he has not bothered to talk with the government. Then he came into power. During his about 4 years in power, he did not fulfill even the constitutional task which was mandatory to talk to the opposition leader while appointing various key posts of the head of the institutions. He has been talking about about the corruption and the mantra of corruption which he has raised during his whole political career against these big political parties, and still he feels that. But this is a drastic change in his attitude, or when the people were saying that he must.
What do you think is behind? I mean, we're talking about now a government which is, has more or less less than, I mean, August, we're talking about August 2023. when the government completes its term. And why is there this urgency that he feels? Is it because of his wave that he feels he has that kind of support that will not outrun this time period? What is behind this urgency for general elections? He's already said so, and we know that he's in power in two of the assemblies, I mean Punjab Assembly and KP both. So what is behind this urgency to have the general elections tomorrow, so to speak?
Well, I think what you have said in your question, that he feels that this is the right time, this wave of his popularity. He is at the height of his popularity according to his own understanding or consideration. But if we talk about objectively, why he is not to deliver what he wants to deliver while coming into power in the whole country. He should go for those revolutionary kind of steps for the favor of the people of Pakistan in KP or in Punjab, and wait for the right time of the constitutional elections in the country. But he is actually not for the norms of democracy, not for the real sense of negotiation.
There's no move to talk about. I mean, there is criticism even today. In the address to the KP Assembly, he spoke about economy. He criticized it, but there doesn't seem to be any move to take part in coming up with counter proposals, sitting with the government, talking. Do you think there is, of course, the realization that the opposition is not willing to do any of that, and the government is, do you think they're taking it seriously, his talk of wanting to sit?
Government should seriously take his offer of the talk, but unfortunately, if we go back into recent part, the temperament of Imran Khan, the role of Imran Khan,
it can't be relied on also.
Yes, of course. This is the thing, that he cannot be a reliable person, reliable opposition leader to talk. He should, I think the only way for him, he should come back into the National Assembly. He should sit over there, or then he should put pressure on the government through legal constitutional means. But he is not doing so. He is a man of that temperament, that he is not believing in the inclusiveness or dialogues or the democratic values.
I mean, on the one hand, he comes out, he criticizes the government, he criticizes their performance. But of course, there is this whole narrative of his own political interest taking precedence over national interest. And when we talk about things like default, which he keeps on talking about, he keeps on mentioning it, that has its own impact on our economy. It has its own impact on, as far as the economic stability is concerned. And there doesn't seem to be any regard for that at all.
Of course, and he is not only talking about the the country is going to default, but he is predicting and is professing in a very sort of harsh manners all the time. But unfortunately, his role, his constitutional role, does not qualify to resolve the issue of economy as an opposition leader. If we see in England, the mother of democracy, if we see even in the past in Pakistan, if we go back into our history, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was very powerful prime minister of this country when in 1977, the controversial elections, when the opposition, alleged that elections were rigged to give the 2/3 majority of the to the ruling the party of that time under Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. But finally, he had to come on the negotiation table after a lot of loss to the country, and he made an agreement with the then opposition. But unfortunately, we have seen a martial law comes into power, into existence, and that remained the most rigorous kind of martial law in the history of Pakistan for 11 years. And again, I would suggest that the sane minds in PTI, they probably should put some sort of, their pressure. They have given some sort of advices to former Prime Minister because they have left with no other option. Because this was the option. They was very much, optimistic that during the change of command in the armed forces, if they put pressure, that pressure would last, that pressure would be effective on the government. And he has openly been saying to the army chief that please come forward and force the government to hold new elections. That failed. and the people
the
who were
long march also, which dragged on
that is
for
also
months.
failed. What he was expecting, look, MAHRUKH, some of the people are of the view that still Imran Khan is the most popular leader of the country, which I personally don't borrow. He is popular, but
do you
he
think
is
he's
not
relying
the
on
popular.
the fact that people, you know, at least his followers, seem to have forgotten the fact, the misgovernance, the overall economic performance of his time, all of those things, and he wants to clamp down on that?
From Karachi to Khyber, he has maneuvered the support of his followers to come to Islamabad after, you know, having 3-4 bullets in his leg, or that's, you know, sort of saga which took place, and the sympathy was there in the, but he couldn't, you know, gathered a massive crowd in Pindi to put the pressure on the government. This is the reality. But if we see that the support of Imran Khan or the supporters, what they have been doing in past by using the social media, they were getting support from some of the institutions, some of the people from the institution, that modern technology, that modern way to show the people that he is the most popular leader, that is still being used. So some of the bots, some of the fake accounts, they have been closed down, and the institution very clearly and every, you know, sort of objective and impartial analyst of the country is of the view that new leadership of armed forces would never come into the arena of politics to maneuver support for party A or party B, what unfortunately we have seen previously in the elections of 2018. But still some of the impacts they are generating, the PTI is generating on social media through those sort of tactics which they have learned during their, you know, rise at the popularity. But with the passage of time, if you go back into the rural areas, people do say that he won the elections, 15 elections in Punjab, the by-elections and 6 elections of National Assembly.
And also there's the point that, you know, as far as his own by-elections are concerned, he seems to lose 1 or 2 seats every time, you know, the by-elections are held.
What he has achieved
Already,
previously, has won it previously.
So overall, you know, that may impact when he talks about Punjab re-election in the Punjab Assembly or KP. You know, there are chances he may lose there rather than gain any seats.
I don't think so. The things would go to that extreme.
Okay.
There should be, there, you know, would be some sort of hurdles still after his announcement of the dissolution of assembly.
Okay.
There would be, you know, a lot of things to come into the way. What about Chaudhry Parvez Ali? Either despite
well, he says that his allies are behind him. How much they are, they're not. I mean, of course, there is
the
a
time
delay
will prove that either there, because if we do not go for the announcement or go for the, you know, the statements of the Punjab Assembly's Chief Minister Chaudhry Parvez Ali, but if we critically analyze, would Parvez Ali be in position to get the CM-ship of Punjab again after elections, if elections took place in that, you know, massive level in Punjab? Or similarly, either they would be in position to muster the support to form a government again, and if such kind of pressures are becoming mantra of the politics of our country, that would be, you know, very hostile to the institution of democracy in the country. What about if the Imran Khan comes in power again? That I personally don't see that he would be able to come into power again as the Prime Minister of Pakistan. But if he comes, what about the opposition of that time? Won't they put the pressure from Sindh Assembly, from any other assembly where they have support, either in the Senate or anywhere, that we are going to resign, we are going to dissolve the assembly, just come and hold the elections,
So he
I
has
can
to
talk
be
to you.
prepared for, right, he has to be
This
prepared
is
for that
actually,
kind
now
of,
look at the, you know, the mother of democracy in England. About 5 Prime Minister change in a very few time of span in one tenure, but the parliament is there, the institution of the democracy is there.
He doesn't seem to give that kind of importance to the parliament. We've seen that, you know, there seems to be no regard.
But the only thing which left is that the government should struggle hard. They should cut down the expenditures, the non-development expenditures, to give some relief to the people of Pakistan, to show some sort of, you know, the seriousness to solve the problems of people. I think with the passage of time, people of Pakistan would see that Imran Khan, on one side, he is contesting elections, spending billions of rupees of the poor people who are facing the, you know, flood, the you know, worst of the kind of in the history. On the other hand, he is not going to assembly and dissolving the assembly. People would consider it in the coming elections.
Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Abid Abbasi. Thank you for joining us. As far as the overall situation stands today, of course, again, taking his own party into confidence, as far as the KP Assembly is concerned, we saw the former Prime Minister talk to them as far as, infusing confidence. We don't know whether taking them on board or not. Of course, there hasn't been any further move towards dissolution of assemblies. Whether he will talk to the government also remains to be seen. Of course, having made that statement, will he follow through or not? Of course, stability, political stability is the need of the hour. Economic stability is also needed, and we need that kind of seriousness across the board, not from the government only, but also the opposition, that can appreciate the kind of situation Pakistan is in as far as economy is concerned. Thank you so much for joining us today in Perspective.